Hello, welcome back to the Gospel Voices Project, where we examine the voices that bring us the gospel and seek to bring the voices of the original biblical writers to life for this and future generations. I'm Michaela Hulse. Today I'm doing something new. I'm doing a reaction video to the Netflix VeggieTales series. Yes, you heard that right. The VeggieTales that we all knew and loved has, through a series of unfortunate events, been purchased and rebooted into a Netflix series. So, the description for this series is Bob the Tomato, Larry the Cucumber, and their veggie pals venture beyond the kitchen counter in these playful adventures with Christian themes. What the heck is a Christian theme? All right, I suppose we're going to find out. Okay, let me know in the comments below what you think about that new intro song, because the old one was pretty good. They did take some elements from the old theme song, but basically, yeah, I'm not really sold on that one.
Look, Ickabeezer got a dog.
Make sure you ask permission first.
Ickabeezer, may we please pet your dog? He's so cute. What kind of dog is he?
He's a Baruni olive hound.
Right, so at first I thought it was a P, so I thought it was a puppy, maybe, but actually it's an olive. The dog is an olive.
My neighbor has more puppies looking for homes. Neither of you have much pet experience. Maybe a puppy is a bit much to handle.
So Bob is basically acting like Larry's parent now. He's sort of being the voice of reason, except he's not like telling him you can't have a puppy. He's trying to reason him out of it. I mean, Larry was always the silly character and Bob was the serious character, but I don't know how I feel about this development.
Larry, remember the last pet I got you?
Yeah, poor thing. I'll never forget the day I flushed him down the toilet.
I guess you could ask him.
Let's go, Larry. All right, puppies are coming.
You think they can handle a puppy?
Frog Grape will know what to do.
So I don't know if this green lady is the mum. Because she said to Laura,
I'm not sure your parents would go for that, Laura.
so she's not Laura's mum, but she's kind of acting like their mum. But if she is their mum, she was just like, oh, well, Pa Grape will know what to do. I think this episode's going to be trying to teach kids about responsibility, and that's not what parental responsibility usually should look like. Why don't we let the shopkeeper down the road parent our kids?
I've always liked you.
Wait, was that romance in VeggieTales? Okay, this is getting weird.
Can Larry and I work here like Petunia?
Yeah, for puppy supplies.
Puppy supplies?
Petunia. Petunia is the name of the tall green lady. They're not calling her mum, so she's not their mum. She's acting a bit like a babysitter.
Ickabeezer told them about some puppies his neighbors are giving away.
Well, puppies are a lot of work. Even beyond just paying for them. They require responsibility. You can start tomorrow during Petunia's shift. I'll give you both chores to do for a week and set you up with all your supplies.
Do you think they can handle the responsibility?
I think it's best to let them prove if they can or not.
Other than the let's just let the storekeeper parent the kids, no mention of what their parents would think of this. I kind of agree with him as far as like, let's let the kids show whether they're responsible enough or not. Because, I mean, I think it's when you're teaching kids about responsibility, sometimes showing them that they're not responsible, giving them sort of tests to judge their level of responsibility can help them. Yeah, he's giving them a chance to prove themselves. I wonder what he's going to give them.
Oh, I'm such a lucky ducky. I'm gonna get a puppy. I'll teach her tricks, she'll give me licks, and I won't even think it's yucky. Gonna be the best, best, best. Be the best. Puppy friends forever.
So this is taking after a segment that happened in the original show called Silly Songs with Larry. I mean, I suppose it is with Larry, but this is very different. I mean, Silly Songs with Larry was usually like not even related to the actual episode. It was just kind of to make kids laugh.
10 days after I turned 8, got my lip stuck in a gate. My friends all laughed, and I just stood there until the fire department came and broke the lock with the crowbar, and I had to spend the next 6 weeks in lip rehab with this kid named Oscar who got stung by a bee right on the lip, and we couldn't even talk to each other until the 5th week because both of our lips were so swollen, and when he did start speaking, he just spoke Polish.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about this new style of music? It's very kiddie, which, I mean, I suppose I shouldn't be criticizing it for being kiddie because it is primarily a kids show, but I'm basically just commenting on the differences between this and the original VeggieTales at this point. Also, I'm kind of wondering where these Christian themes are gonna kick in. If it's just a story about responsibility, you need to understand responsibility as a kid before you can understand the gospel. But I don't know if I would call that on its own a Christian theme.
Laura and Larry are ready for you to put them to work. Yeah, we're ready, Paul.
Good. Here's a chore list. You should be able to do about 10 a day. In a week, you'll have earned your puppy supplies.
I think these two can handle that.
But wait, there's more. These are my 2 pet guppies. They are now your responsibility. You need to feed them at 5 o'clock every day before you leave. And if they're well taken care of at the end of the week, you two will get your puppy.
Easy sneezy lemon squeezy.
Good. I figure if you two can take care of some guppies, maybe you can graduate to puppies.
Okay, I'm seeing a slight problem here. I have a problem with the idea that we'll give a child a small pet and then if they don't take care of it well, it's not such a big a deal as if we gave them a dog. Because sometimes small animals can be more responsibility than a dog. I mean, I want you to just imagine sweeping up after these guys. But actually, even if you get a kid a fish, it's less work to look after a fish than a dog, sure. But it's still a living being, and if a child neglects it, doesn't feed it, doesn't wash clean its tank, this animal is suffering. Cure for creation is part of Christianity, it's part of the Bible, and I don't think this is teaching that very well. But let's see what happens to these guppies.
Okay, you two. Time to get to work. And no goofing off, right?
Okay, so the kids have started their week of work and the kids have just been goofing off and Pa Grape has been feeding the fish. Now, usually if I gave kids a job to do to prove that they were responsible, I wouldn't want to be doing it because that would just teach them that, if they don't do their job, then someone else will do it. When it's an animal, you kind of have to look after it because, like I said, it's not right to let something suffer because a child won't look after it, which is kind of why animals aren't necessarily the best if you take them as just a tool to teach children responsibility, because what are they learning from you looking after their pet? That if I don't do my responsibility, someone else will come and do it for me? I'm glad he's feeding them. I'm glad those fish are getting food. Let's see what happens.
When is the last time you fed my guppies?
I think Larry did once.
Well, I did offer them some water, but they didn't want any. Is that puppy money?
It is the amount you would need to buy yourself puppy supplies. But this is not the amount you earned. This is how much you earned.
What? That's nowhere near enough.
Don't lose hope, kids. This doesn't mean you'll never get your own puppies, but I think it does prove that you're not ready to take care of your own puppies. I gave you these to see if you could take care of them. How did you do?
Not so good.
Nope. I was a bad guppy daddy.
You know, you could afford a fish bowl and fish supplies for about this much money.
Okay, so the kids have done an appalling job at looking after the fish. They have maybe fed them once the whole week. And so wait, now he's giving them guppies? The kids didn't look after the fish, so you give them fish. That's irresponsible to the fish and to the children.
I thought you might be interested, so I made you this special fish bowl.
Luke 16:10. That's an odd name for a couple of guppies.
Okay, so we're getting a Bible verse. Honestly, I'm still not sure where the Christian themes are, but we've got a Bible verse. Let's see what happens.
Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much.
And may I add, whoever can be trusted with guppies may one day be trusted with puppies.
And now they throw a Bible verse in here, so now it's a Christian cartoon, right? Okay, what was that verse about in its original context? And does that have any actual relevance to the story? Jesus said to his disciples, "There was a rich man who received an accusation that his manager was squandering his possessions. So he called the manager in and asked, 'What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, because you can no longer be my manager.' Then the manager said to himself, 'What will I do since my master is taking the management away from me? I'm not strong enough to dig. I'm ashamed to beg. I know what I'll do so that when I am removed from my management, people will welcome me into their homes.' He summoned each of his master's debtors. 'How much do you owe my master?' he asked the first one. 100 measures of olive oil,' he said. 'Take your invoice,' he told him. 'Sit down quickly and write 50. The master praised the unrighteous manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the children of this age are more shrewd than the children of light in dealing with their own people. I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of worldly wealth, so that when it fails, they may welcome you into eternal dwellings. Whoever is faithful in very little is also faithful in much, and whoever is unrighteous in very little is also unrighteous in much. So if you have not been faithful with worldly wealth, who will trust you with what is genuine? And if you have not been faithful with what belongs to someone else, who will give you what is your own? No servant can serve two masters, since either he will hate one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money." Well, the Pharisees, who were the lovers of money, were listening to all these things and scoffing at him. And he told them, "You are the ones who justify yourselves in the sight of others, but God knows your hearts, for what is highly admired by people is revolting in God's sight." So at first glance, that parable seems possibly quite confusing, even to Christians. The point that Jesus is trying to make is he's comparing this unrighteous, okay, he's not commending this guy who's like, "Oh, I'll just write off my master's wealth for my own benefit." The unrighteous people, he says, the children of this age, the non-believers around you, are more shrewd than the children of the light in dealing with their own people. the people around you can be clever with money to gain things for their own benefit. In this case, an earthly benefit of having a place to sleep after you lose your job. I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of worldly wealth, so that when it fails, they may welcome you into eternal dwellings. What does that mean? Behave with your wealth like a Christian. If you have extra as a Christian, give to people who are in need. It's not that the people who are in need are going to be welcoming them into eternal dwellings. It's God who's doing that. But other places in the scripture we see that when we are charitable to people in need, it's as though we're doing it to God. So I think what he's saying here is, this is a particular kind of wisdom that the people of this world have, where they know how to behave in a business sense and how to exploit money to get their things for their own gain. And the people in our world, to be honest, are not that different. But in the way that they can be shrewd in dealing with their own people, I want you, children of the light, Christians, to be shrewd in dealing in how you behave with your worldly wealth, because God is the owner of everything in this world. And it's, the same way this servant, he didn't own his master's stuff. We don't own our master's stuff. So if we have wealth, it's entrusted to us. We're stewards of it. If we have time, we're stewards of it. And what we do with our wealth and with our time is, we're responsible for that. So in a way, this parable is about responsibility. But I don't like that VeggieTales has taken this verse 10 out of context and applied it to their own lesson that they've made up about responsibility for children, because I don't think it quite fits. So this is not a verse about worldly responsibility, which is looking after a pet. This is a verse about behaving with the things that we have the way a Christian should behave. So rather than earning money to get things that you want for a pet, maybe if the children had been earning money and then decided to give it away to other people in need, maybe that would have been a slightly better application of what this passage is saying. I think the purpose here is just to make a cartoon, make some money, maybe have a bit of a moral feel to it. But definitely I don't think the purpose of this cartoon is to teach children about God. We need to take a Bible verse to make it feel more Christian-y. So let's take one that seems to be about responsibility, but actually it's about much more than that. And when we take it out of the context that it was in the original scripture and we put it into our episode, which is about learning how to take care of pets, we lose 90% of the meaning from the verse. And I think we have a problem in Christian media, whether, even in some of the better Christian media for children, we like to take Bible verses out and get them to memorize Bible verses, but I think that teaches them to take the Bible at face value, and it teaches them a very bad skill in terms of trying to understand what the Bible means. In order to understand this verse, you need to read the whole chapter, and really you need to read the chapter before it as well, because it's a series of stories that Jesus tells, and in the chapter before there's a series of stories that build up to this. And I think that even in the original VeggieTales, we did things like giving children a Bible verse out of context, and sometimes that can be done well and it can be presented and interpreted well, but we've just sort of driven ourselves to the point where we think that it's normal to just take a Bible verse out of context and give it to kids, and this is what we're getting now. And also, Pa Grape paraphrased this Bible verse to mean something that is entirely different from what it means in the original context. Those who were once trusted with guppies can one day be trusted with puppies. I mean, come on. That's not what the verse is about. I mean, what view of scripture do we want children to have? Do we want to teach children that it's okay to just change scripture or take it to mean whatever it seems to mean on the face?
Thanks for coming over. I don't know if I can handle a sad and disappointed Larry and a sad and disappointed Laura by myself.
Okay.
So he's a single father?
Yeah, I don't know what's happening here. Like I said, it feels like Bob is the father to Larry, and Petunia has come over. So they're not parents. It seems like Bob might be a single father, but actually it's kind of nice to see a single parent family represented, if that is what it's supposed to be in a Christian cartoon. Because there will be a lot of kids growing up in church who are in single parent families. So if that's what it's supposed to be, like, I don't really have an objection to that. It's just kind of a weird way to warp the character relationships to make them from people who were sort of like friends in the original series and sort of behaved like they were the same age, even though Larry was a bit silly and Bob was more of a stable character, to sort of warp them into now Larry's behaving like a 3-year-old and Bob's behaving like a dad. That part is more what I find interesting. Let's call it interesting.
Do guppies eat marshmallows?
No, Larry. Guppies do not eat marshmallows.
Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Thank you for tuning in to the Gospel Voices Project. I hope you've enjoyed this VeggieTales reaction video. Please tune in next week for more Christian content. Until then, see you later.